Have you ever felt like something big was about to happen, but you couldn't explain why? My friend, what I'm about to tell you might sound strange, unsettling even, but stay with me because there's something powerful waiting for you on the other side of this message. There's a moment coming in your life sooner than you think, when you will witness not one but two deaths, and they won't happen days or weeks apart. No, they will unfold right before your eyes, at the very same time, in the very same moment. Now I know what you're thinking. Death. That's never easy. Most people would expect tears, heartbreak, mourning, but here's the part that may confuse everyone around you, including yourself. You won't feel sorrow. You won't feel loss. In fact, you'll feel joy. Yes, joy. You might smile. You might breathe deeper than you have in years. And as strange as that may seem, it will be the most honest reaction your heart could give. But people around you, they won't understand. They'll look at your face and wonder, how could they feel peace right now? Why aren't they crying? And the truth is, it's not because you're cold or numb, it's because deep down your soul will recognize something far greater is at work. This isn't about the end of life. It's about the end of something that was never meant to stay. These deaths are not tragedies, they're divine transitions. And what's dying might just be exactly what you've prayed for all along. So I ask you, what if what you thought would break you was actually the beginning of your breakthrough? Let that question linger, because in the next part of this message you'll see what's really unfolding and why it will set your heart free. You know, sometimes life surprises us in the most unexpected ways. And not every ending is a tragedy. Some are sacred transitions we didn't see coming. Those two deaths I mentioned earlier, they aren't about the loss of people. No, it's something deeper, more personal. What's ending isn't a life, but a burden, a weight you've carried for far too long. And this moment is heaven's way of saying enough. Others may cry. They'll see it and think something terrible has happened. But you'll feel a strange calm, a lightness in your chest, almost like exhaling after holding your breath for years. And no, it's not because you've grown numb or indifferent. Quite the opposite. It's because your spirit understands. You've grown, you've prayed, you've asked for freedom, and now God is answering in a way only He can. This is where peace enters, not the kind the world gives, the kind that goes deeper than logic, the kind that comes when your soul recognizes that something heavy has finally been lifted. Think back to Psalm 34:17. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. That's not poetry. That's a promise, one that's now coming alive in your story. So maybe the real question isn't, why is this happening, but what is God making room for in my life? Because when something dies that was never meant to stay, something new begins that was always meant to be. And trust me, what's coming next will be worth every tear you've cried. So now let me tell you the truth you've been waiting for. Those two deaths you'll witness, they aren't about people. They're about the end of something far more personal. The death of your struggles, the end of the burdens that have been quietly crushing you, especially the financial ones that kept you up at night, whispering doubts into your mind. You know the ones, the silent battles no one sees, the constant calculating, the feeling of falling behind no matter how hard you try, the heaviness that wraps around your chest like a chain. God saw it all, every silent breakdown, every whispered prayer in the dark, every time you held it together when you were barely hanging on. And now, He's saying, enough. This is the moment when heaven steps in and draws a line. The struggle is not your story. The burden is not your identity. This is the moment those weights die, not in chaos, but in peace, quietly, permanently. Remember Ecclesiastes 3:1-2. To everything there is a season, a time to be born and a time to die. Yes, even pain has a season, even suffering has an expiration date, and that season is ending for you. This isn't just closure, it's a holy transition. You're stepping out of a chapter that nearly broke you and into one where your soul can breathe again. So I ask you, what does freedom feel like? Maybe you haven't tasted it in a while, but it's coming, and it starts here with the death of what no longer belongs in your life. There comes a moment, quiet but powerful, when God whispers, "It's time to move forward." And yet, as humans, we often find ourselves standing at the edge of breakthrough, still looking backward. Let's be honest. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't letting go of pain, it's letting go of what's familiar. We cling to old habits, old fears, even old suffering, not because we want them, but because we've learned how to live with them. But hear this, just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's meant to stay. God is calling you out of the grave of your past struggles. That chapter is closed. Don't revisit the pain just because it once felt like home. Isaiah 43:19 says, "Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth, shall you not know it?" That's not just a poetic verse, it's a personal invitation. God is doing something new in you. And for that new thing to take root, you've got to stop watering what's already dead. Maybe your fear tells you, "It's safer to stay where I am." Maybe your comfort zone has turned into a cage. But God doesn't want you to survive. He wants you to thrive. He's opening new doors, making space for peace where chaos used to live, provision where there used to be lack, freedom where fear once held you captive. This is your resurrection moment, not someday, but now. So here's the question. Will you keep standing at the grave of your past? Or will you step into the new life that's waiting? Let's be honest, waiting is hard. Whether it's waiting for a door to open, a prayer to be answered, or a burden to lift, those seasons of silence can feel like punishment. But what if I told you that your waiting isn't empty? It's holy. What feels like delay is often divine preparation. You see, God isn't just concerned with getting you to the promise. He's shaping who you'll be when you arrive. Even Jesus, the Son of God, waited 30 years before stepping into his public ministry. 30 years. Not because he wasn't ready to love or heal or teach, but because the timing had to align with heaven's bigger plan. We often want microwave miracles, fast, immediate. But God is more like a slow-burning fire. He builds strength, depth, and unshakable faith in the waiting. Habakkuk 2:3 says, "Though it tarry, wait for it will surely come." And here's the part we often overlook. The pressure you're feeling right now, that resistance, it's not a sign that you're off track. It's confirmation that you're right on it. The enemy doesn't fight what's not a threat. The closer you get to breakthrough, the louder the chaos gets. That's because breakthrough disturbs darkness. So if you've been waiting, wrestling with the silence, doubting whether God still hears, you don't let go. The tension you feel isn't the end. It's the buildup before the blessing. Stay anchored, because you're not just waiting. You're being prepared to walk into something greater than you imagined. Sometimes what hurts the most isn't just the pain, it's feeling like no one sees it. But I want you to hear this. God sees it all. Every moment you bit your tongue instead of lashing out. Every time you chose kindness over bitterness. Every quiet night you cried, then showed up the next day with a smile. That kind of strength, that kind of heart. Heaven doesn't overlook it. It honors it. Even when people have mistreated you, ignored your pain, or made you feel small, God saw what they didn't. And more importantly, He saw what you didn't see in yourself. The courage it takes to love anyway. The quiet faith it takes to stay kind when life is anything but fair. Now let's be real. The enemy has tried to twist that. He's whispered lies in your ear. You're not enough. You're forgotten. You're wasting your time. Those aren't just passing thoughts. That's spiritual warfare. But here's the truth that cuts through all of it. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. Read that again. Let it sink in. It doesn't say weapons won't form. It says they won't win. The attacks may come, the voices may rise, but the truth of God stands taller. You are covered. You are protected. And even when the world doesn't recognize your worth, God already has. So if you've been wondering, does any of this even matter? Yes, it does. Because you matter. Your heart, your tears, your faith, it all matters. And God sees every bit of it, even when no one else does. Let me ask you something personal but real. Have you ever felt like your mind was a battlefield? One moment you feel close to peace, and the next, your thoughts are spiraling into fear, resentment, or self-doubt. It's like peace was there, but somehow it slipped through your fingers. Here's a truth we don't talk about enough. There's a spiritual battle happening not just around us, but within us. And that battleground, it's our mind. God wants to give you peace, real peace, not the kind that comes from a spa day or a good night's sleep. His peace isn't fragile like that. It's strong, steady, a peace that holds you even when everything else feels shaky. But here's the thing. That peace has a rival chaos, and chaos often shows up wearing familiar faces: fear, anger, pride, jealousy, anxiety. These thoughts don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper quietly, subtly shifting your perspective until God's voice starts to fade into the background. The more you feed those thoughts, the more distant His peace becomes. But it doesn't have to be that way. When you choose to surrender, truly surrender, and let God lead your thoughts, something beautiful happens. That chaos begins to clear. God's presence becomes louder than the noise. And peace, it flows in like a mighty river, not a trickle, not a fleeting moment, a steady, unshakable current. Galatians reminds us that when we live by the Spirit, we bear fruit: love, joy, peace, patience. But when we let our sinful nature take the wheel, we get the opposite: restlessness, conflict, confusion. So let me ask you this: what are you allowing to grow in your mind? Because peace isn't just a feeling, it's a spiritual choice. A decision to trust even when it's hard. A decision to obey even when your emotions are screaming otherwise. The world offers temporary relief, but God, He offers peace that lasts. Peace that won't vanish when the storm rolls in. Peace that anchors your soul in truth, not trends. So today, I challenge you, look at your thoughts. Are they leading you to God's presence or pulling you away from it? Whatever the answer is, know this: it's never too late to turn back. One moment of surrender can shift everything. God's peace is waiting, not just to visit, but to dwell within you. Have you ever stood in front of a wall you just couldn't climb? Maybe not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, financially. It's that moment when you feel completely surrounded, trapped, like every path you once counted on has suddenly disappeared. And in that moment, there's this voice, quiet but powerful, that rises up inside of you. It doesn't say give up. It says cry out. Friend, if you're stuck right now, if you feel like you've run out of options, that doesn't mean the story's over. It just means it's time for faith to speak louder than fear. Psalm 77:19 says something beautiful. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Think about that. God's path wasn't on dry land. It was through the sea, through the chaos, through the unknown. God doesn't always lead you around the impossible. Sometimes He leads you through it, not because He's trying to test your limits, but because He wants to show you something about His power that only shows up when you're completely out of your own. Have you ever watched the Red Sea part in your life? Maybe not literally, but that moment when something shifts that you never saw coming. That's God's specialty. He creates roads where no map exists. He opens doors in places we thought were locked forever. And all He asks is that you trust Him, not because it makes sense, but because He's never failed before. So if you're staring at deep waters today, don't panic. Lift your eyes, lift your heart, and say, God, I don't see the way, but I believe You are the way. Because when there is no visible path, that's often when God is about to do His most visible miracle. Let's talk about waiting, because I know you're tired of it. You've prayed, you've believed, You've held on with everything you have, and still the promise hasn't shown up. The doors feel closed, the silence feels deafening, and somewhere deep inside you're wondering, did God forget me? But what if the silence doesn't mean he's absent? What if the delay isn't denial, but preparation? See, we tend to think of waiting as wasted time, but in God's hands, waiting is sacred. It's where character is refined. It's where trust deepens. It's where your heart gets shaped not just for the promise, but for the weight of the promise. The truth is, not every blessing comes instantly. Some of the most beautiful things in life take time to grow, like strength, like wisdom, like faith that can't be shaken. God isn't trying to frustrate you. He's preparing you. And behind the scenes, even when you feel forgotten, he's working. You're not being ignored. You're being shaped. Think of it like this: a seed planted in soil looks buried. It's dark. It's quiet. Nothing seems to be happening. But underneath, life is forming. Roots are stretching. Strength is building. And when the time is right, it will break through the surface, not a second too soon or too late. You may not see the movement right now, but something is happening beneath the surface of your life. So don't give up. Hold on. The promise hasn't changed, and neither has God's heart for you. He hasn't forgotten you, not for a moment. Let me remind you of something you may have forgotten in the waiting. Your story isn't over. If you're watching this and wondering if your best days are behind you, let me tell you they're not. What you've been praying for, holding on to, pushing through for, is closer than it's ever been. Breakthrough doesn't always come with warning signs. It often arrives like the first light after a long night, suddenly, beautifully, and undeniably. And when it comes, it won't be small. It won't be halfway. It will be exactly what you needed, and more than you expected. But here's the thing: right before the breakthrough is often when we feel the most discouraged. That's not a coincidence. It's the pressure before the release, the silence before the song. It's the enemy's last effort to convince you to give up, just moments before everything changes. So hear this: don't quit now. God hasn't forgotten what he spoke over your life. He hasn't abandoned what he started. If he gave you the vision, he's already preparing the provision. And when it comes, it'll fit your life like a key fits a lock. Not forced, not flawed. Perfect in timing, perfect in purpose. So today, even if you're tired, even if you're hanging on by a thread, choose to believe again. Your breakthrough isn't behind you, it's right in front of you.